All right. Hello, Dr. Shola. Good to see you, my dear.
Hello, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. We are grateful and thankful to be here again on Open and Unashamed podcast. And we have been having an amazing time. I know I've been having an amazing time. What
Yes,
about you?
same. I love doing these episodes with you. Um, full confession. Today I was coming up. I worked overnight, so I was really tired. I was like, oh, I don't want to. But I know that when I come here and do these episodes with you, I get really energized and just have that extra energy to face the day. So I'm like, yeah, we're doing this.
We're doing this. We're doing this. I'll be honest with you, for a confession. You have been my encouragement to do this, to keep this moving. And you have said to me, doesn't have to be perfect. We talked about perfection last time. You said, but just the mere fact of us doing it, and it will perfect itself as it goes. And
Yep.
so I just want to tell you thank you, and I appreciate you because I know you're a busy woman, and I respect your time. And I respect your talents as well. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. I
So
think this is what my mother would call a mutual admiration society.
come on, Mutual Admiration Society. Mutual Admiration Society. I also want to give you just a little feedback too. Sometimes I do go online. I like to see what people are saying about our podcast. And so people have shared that they are grateful for us teaming together. They are thankful for some of the very transparent conversations. We've talked about time. We've talked about regrets. We've talked
Yep.
about our own personal lives, how to be. That was your book that we talked about last time. And then it's talked about us being, this perfectionist stage that we believe we have to be in order to even get things started. And so I wanted to just give you feedback that people are saying thank you. Individuals are saying, hey, I didn't look at it that way. I am grateful that I am a part of this podcast. And so I'm appreciative, and it encourages me to keep going. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you that feedback.
Thank you very
Woo.
much.
All right. So my heart is heavy. I have prepositioned Dr. Shola and asked her to just roll with this with today. One of the topics that we wanted to talk about today was parenthood. Let's discuss that, hopefully in a little raw form. Let's talk a little bit about maybe the school system. Okay. And maybe we can encourage our teachers and parents. One of the things that I experienced this week, I was at a school. I was there to support and provide a small group with my business, encouraging individuals. And I didn't hear a lot of noise in the hallways. So, I kept saying, where the kids at? There's a book
Yes.
called Where Are the Children? There's a book that's called Where Are the Children? And so someone shared with me that the kids don't come to school.
What?
Did you hear me? Mm-hmm. They say they don't come to school. And so they
Where
began
did
to
they
break.
go?
That's what I said. What do you mean they don't go to school? They said they don't know. They be out in the streets. They just don't come to school. They don't know if they're getting dropped off and they're going somewhere else. So I said, so my eyes are big and I'm really kind of stuck where I am because I really, if anybody know anything about me, I'm going to ask a million questions to try to
Of
get
course.
to the root of what we're talking about. So someone reported and said, well, they had half of their class. Okay. That was in their class. Then we passed another class. In that class, that room, they said that it was only 1/4. It's about 7 to 8 children in their class. And I said, so when you all say they're not here, like, is it spring break? And they said no. They said, based on what's been happening, what's happening there. That's what I said. They said, no, what we mean is it seems like the parents don't care either. So the kids don't come to school. And my heart was aching by the time I got home. I asked the person I was with over and over again to help me understand this. You all, I live here in Columbus. I am from Chicago. I know that it happens everywhere. Okay. But the reason I asked, I wasn't hearing noise because the schools in Chicago, you can hear them going from class to class.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can hear them. You can hear them laughing.
Like a marketplace.
Absolutely. Absolutely like a marketplace. So and I know I'm in a different state, and maybe there's some different laws, and But I'll tell you, even just maybe a month or two ago, I talked to someone else, and you know, and I'm opening up to you. And what she said to me was, and she didn't look like me as far as race, but I asked her how many, what's your demographic of black male and female, black women and men teachers? And she said, to be honest, it's not many. She said, we're trying to get them in here. She said, I'm not trying to be funny, but we're trying to get them in here. So we start talking about, you know, ways to do that. Are you going maybe to the colleges? Maybe you're connecting with those who are taking education as their major and, you know, things like that. Because God just called me to be a resource. I'm just like, we need an answer.
Brainstorming.
We need to brainstorm. We need an answer. So my heart was pricked, you know. You have children. What has been your experience with your children, you know, going to school? I mean, I know you're a busy woman, but what is your involvement like?
Oh, my children go to school. At least I think so. No. My husband has a tile on their car. No. I mean, jokes apart, I think
Real talk.
no. This, I think, goes back to parenthood. And really, I don't want to sound, I'm when I talk about things like this, I'm very careful of coming across as being judgmental of people's parenting styles.
Yes.
But there's a trend I have noticed. People let their kids do whatever they want when they're younger. And then when they get older, try to parent them. And again, I'm saying people, some, obviously, not all people, right?
Absolutely.
But it's something that I've noticed. For me, when my kids were younger, I was very strict in setting expectations. So, you know, yes, people, for example, a 2-year-old will mouth off and parents will laugh. To me, that was never fun. No. And I think that when you start setting expectations early, there are certain lines that your kids might even be scared to cross. I can't imagine a situation where my kids would just not turn up to school because they know that, you know, the consequences of not going to school is going to be worse for them when we find out. And we apply consequences. We're fair, you know. At the same time, we have expectations for our kids and we set them all the time. And the moment you decide to have kids, it's like you signed your life away. You can't afford to be too busy for that. So I'm a doctor, okay? When I finished residency, I made up my mind that because of my kids, I was going to get a 9-to-5 doctor job, as much as a 9-to-5 doctor job. I could have gone and worked in the hospital and made 2 times as much as I made as an outpatient doctor. But I said, no, I want to make sure my kids see me every day as much as possible. And I want to have my weekends off, and I want to set traditions for them. And in the office where I worked, the few Saturdays where I worked, I could bring them in with me. So they actually came to work with me sometimes. And I was just able to, have that, I would say, oversight. Like I'm there. Instead of, working, you're working for money that you're going to leave to these kids who, if we haven't raised them properly, they're going to fritter the money away.
You just said something right there. That's a whole wealth class.
And I'm not saying I'm the perfect parent. Believe me, I'm not perfect. And my kids are not perfect, because I'm like, hey, I'm still, and that's the thing, parenting never ends.
Yes.
So, you can almost never afford to take your eye off the ball. You have to be on them all the time. Like, in the beginning, you have more control, but as time goes by and they grow older, you always have to be a guide for them all the time. And that sense that you're going to leave the school and the teachers to do the job that you're supposed to do. The idea that kids shouldn't cut school shouldn't come from school. It should come from their parents first.
Right.
Then the teacher is just complimenting and carrying on what you're doing. But I've noticed from the time I was little till now, things have changed. A lot of parents have this entitled mentality. Why is my child not getting A's? They blame the teacher. When I was growing up, why are you not getting A's? The teacher and your parents are looking at you.
Absolutely.
Like,
Together. Like
you're
we're a
there.
team.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And even when my kids were in elementary, I had that sense. I would go to the teachers and say, okay, so, what's going on? And be like, well, she's doing very well. But I'm like, okay, so let me stop you right there. I'm not that parent that you have to sugarcoat things for. If you're telling me something, most likely I probably know. So I want you to tell me what you're seeing and how we can improve. I'm not here to compliment my child. And you could almost see the relief in their eyes, like, okay, this one is not going to be a problem.
Absolutely.
So they'll be like, okay, well, your daughter does this, and we're going to need her to do this, or else this. I'm like, good, thank you. I can work with that. But a lot of parents don't want to hear the truth, so they get angry at the teachers. Nowadays, the teachers don't even are disempowered because the parents are coming down on them, and it's like, oh, I don't want. I mean, sometimes some of the things my daughter describes happening in her school won't be named, and it's actually one of the supposedly best public schools in Illinois, etc. But some of the unruliness that goes on in front of the teachers,
absolutely,
an eighth grade class, it would never have gone on when I was in eighth grade, or even when her older sister was in eighth grade, and we're just talking about a difference of 3 years. So I'm just, again, it sounds all doom and gloom, but not really. What we can do as parents is that we need to take more of an active role. And sometimes if you're maybe you're a single parent or something, you might have to involve other people to, maybe talk to your child. And I have my kids, they talk to aunties all the time. These aunties might be my friends. I'm like, oh, we're going to see auntie, whatever. And I pull into the background, they start talking, and then the aunties start giving them advice I've given, but it's sounding better coming from the auntie.
Absolutely. Because I'm the auntie. I'm the auntie that the kids come to. I'm the auntie that comes after them. So if you're connected to this family, and my family always watches, they watch our podcast. So they know that I'm the auntie that comes and say, what's up with school? How are you teachers? Well, Auntie Lisa, this and that. No, teacher is this and that. And I'm like, well, no, well, let's talk about it now. Because it's not
I'm
always
going to bring my 17-year-old to you.
Oh, yeah. I love that age. Because one thing about it, that age is now transitioning from high school. They are starting that transition. If they're 11th grade and up, they are transitioning to college or whatever it is they want to do, the next step in their lives. And a lot of times the schools are not doing a good job of making that transition. I can say that. So whoever hears this podcast, if they're part of the education, school system, parents, I am not afraid of you to leave a message. What this really is a cry out. It's not, like you said, judgment that's being passed. Really, my purpose for this conversation, open and unashamed conversation, is so that we can alarm people about what's going on with our children. Yes. This so-called next generation that's literally dwindling away. They're dwindling away on their cell phones. They're dwindling away on games. They're dwindling away in drugs and getting high and saying, hey, it's legal now. It's cool for me to do it. It doesn't change my brain function. The devil is a lie. It does.
It does.
If it doesn't, why would you be doing it? If you were getting high and feeling good, why would you be doing it?
You go drink some water.
So that's right. I mean, real talk. I've been there. Yes. So when you share about our involvement, I love how you talked about, if the teacher is saying this, they don't know what to say. They're tiptoeing around, what it is that they want. So I have my paraprofessional license as well. People always say, what else do she do? Well, I worked in the school system. And so I had an opportunity to be there for teacher conferences. And in teacher conferences, they were low. Parents didn't show up. So what I did was I was an assistant to a teacher, and we literally called the parents. We called the parents. We prepared. We knew the dates when we were going to be having, these orientations, or when we were going to have a student and parent conference day. We got in touch with them. And then we did this cute little reward. If you come, you enter into a raffle. We had to tiptoe to get folk to come. I'm being honest with you. I'm in the streets. Hey, parents, they drop their kids off in the car. I'm stopping the car before they actually drive off to say, hey, there's a parent conference. There's this, there's that. Oh, okay. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. So the first one, we didn't have many people.
Working.
The second one, we actually had the second parent conference. I told the teacher, he said, I really don't want to fail the kids. I really want to talk to their parents. I said, well, are they failing? He said, yes. I said, well, fail them. What are we talking about? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, because I bet if you give them the grade that they actually deserve because of the work that they're giving, I bet you their parents be up here. How much you want to bet? Do you know I had a whole line of parents signed up for parent conference? They were signed up. What it was is that the teacher didn't want to deal with the conflict of it. And I shared with him, I'll deal with the conflict. You got 2 or 3 minutes to talk to each parent because the parent running out the room anyway. Well, just give me their grade and keep moving. But as soon as they see that F, they're like, well, wait a minute. Why you give my child an F? Why did I said, well, what kind of grades are your parents,
give
are
your
your children?
That was what your child
That's
got.
what he earned. He started off with an A because we started everybody off with an A. So really he lost his A. That's what he did. And so the parents were, they were coming at us, but I'm not afraid of you all. I'm not afraid of parents because I'm a parent. I'm not afraid of you because you've grown and we want the best for your children. What are we talking about here? So in the midst of the busyness that you talked about, you made some decisions to say, hey, I need to work this job. Let me tell you, I'm not judging anybody because I get it. I was a single parent. I love his dad. His dad supported as much as he could as far as being a co-parent. But at the end of the day, as a mother, and I'm not talking about this is a mother or father thing. No. I'm talking about, I'm making this message for men, for parents, period. I did have to make some decisions. And sometimes we're trying to figure out, am I going to be homeless or not? I pulled on my support systems. You talked about that earlier. And so my son, I had this conversation with him the other day, and he came with such wisdom. He said, Mom, first of all, I know I didn't appreciate you for what you asked and what you did. You weren't my best friend. You made sure that I went to school, that I did what I was supposed to do. And when I didn't, it wasn't your fault, it was mine. He said, and so the generation right under me, because he's 25 now, and he said, their parents, the generation under you, Mom, this is what he telling me. He was telling me. They became friends and they became too busy and they became too involved in their jobs, and they gave them a key and they could come in or out however they wanted to. But what they didn't do was make sure that they were grounded and rooted in school and that they had a support system at home. My son said that. And my eyes got this big. Because here's what I know, Dr. Shola. There are times, and my son is not perfect at all. People that know me personally know our relationship. What I love about him is that I get an opportunity to see him grow again. I get a chance to see those seeds. That when the scripture says to train a child up in the way that he should go, and when he gets older, he won't depart. Now he doesn't do exactly what I tell him to do it always. But what none of them. Oh no, I didn't even do it. My mother came talking about, I'm on my way to come find you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Hello.
And so I love what he shared with me because it lets us know that the seeds that we planted, that somebody watered them and God gave the increase. And he has to make his own decisions now. But I worked a job between being a director, a district manager with over 13 stores. So back then I had 2 pagers. I had cell phones when really the real cell phones were just coming out. And I had 2 cell phones, one big, huge one, a couple of pagers. And when I got pregnant, I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't be on call. I can't go to a store because the managers don't show up at 9, 10 in the morning. I'm walking around pregnant as all outdoors. And so I resigned. I got another job with the bank and I'm a teller. I know y'all, look, how do you go cutting your salary in half? You just talked about that. But it's real. And I cut my salary in half. And did I know how I was going to survive? I had to trust God on this thing. I was new with going back to church. I was new in my faith. I was new in all of that. Listen to me, parents. We're not saying that you're doing this by yourself, that you're a bad person. The only thing I'm saying to you is that I had to be an example for him. And he'll talk about it now. He's like, I watched you and learned how you do customer service. I understand how to have healthy communication with people. That's what he said. I was glad to hear that because I'm big on that. So, but my journey was a challenge, Dr. Shola. It wasn't easy going from making this salary to this salary. It wasn't easy. I was picking them up and saying, hey, I got to be off at 5. I got to go get him. Listen, I know what that feels like, that they're saying, hey, what time do you come into the daycare to come get him? I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I promise you, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. And being up at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, trying to help with this project. And my eyeballs like this and half open while they done went to sleep. And I'm saying, why are you asleep? This your homework. What were you doing here? But I am saying that it takes for us to be involved. It takes for us to pull on those other people, our support system, because our children, let me tell you what God said to me, they are dying. They are dying. They're not just physically dying. You know, I know we're concerned about them getting shot up, about them getting hurt, about them being in jail, the prison pipeline, from the school to the prison pipeline, you know, all these things that's set up for us to make us fail. But there are some things that set up for us to make us prosper.
Yes.
Because through God, all things are possible. Through Christ, all things are possible. Yes. I told him, you can't tell me that this can't change. The devil is a liar. So I need us. This is a call out, a sense of urgency for those who listen to this, for those who will share it, for you when you go, you know, in your space and sharing with your doctor friends. We have to find out how to save our children. If education was never your field, you got to find out how to get in there. You went, I want to, you know, I mean, I know you have schools that you visited, and we're not saying names on here, but you had an opportunity to experience and actually see one school versus another, right? One neighborhood versus another.
Yes.
What's offered to our children? You know? So to see this and have this understanding, I know I've always had a heart for teenagers or young adults. And I tell people, I know y'all can't tell because I'm always ministering to women. But that is, I love us, but the babies are my call. Because if we can get them, before they get like us, I'm just telling you, before they get too tainted, before life start happening for real, before they start having babies all over the place, before they try to figure out they don't really have a support system or not, or how to do this, can we get to them for real and save our children? So we must take our time. None of us are exempt. I was looking at salary for teachers. To the billionaires that may ever, you know, send us to the billionaires that we know. Since we're opening up, you know, other places and all these nonprofit organizations and all of these things. To the billionaires, if you would just adopt one school, you can adopt maybe 2 or 3. But if you adopt them and maybe just add on $10,000 a year, oh, I love that idea. Maybe just $10,000 a year to each teacher. Just 10,000. Maybe that'll help them stay. Because many of them are going to work, and we're talking about starting off with 45,000. Do you understand 45,000, what that does after taxes? At a 25 to 28% tax rate, that takes you down to 30-something thousand. And if you divide 30-something thousand, let's just take an even number of 36,000 and divide it by 12. That is $3,000 a month. If you take $3,000 and you divide it, okay, by $1,500, if you have children, you got 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. If you don't own your own property, you're paying $1,500 to $1,800 or $1,900.
I remember they don't pay them in the summer.
Oh,
do you remember?
That's right. And some, what they used to do, they had a fund or they had a program where they took the money out for the summer. They no longer do it. So you kind of get your money up front. And if you're not disciplined, then most likely that money is spent and you're trying to figure out what are you going to do for the summer.
Yep.
So we're talking about $3,000. I bet you the teachers will watch this and they're like, you ain't never lied. They're not bringing home no more than $3,000 or $3,500.
Oh.
And 50% of that ratio is taken. But I got to show up every day for your little booger that you got at home, that they either cursing you out or you cursing them out. Or your little booger that don't want to go to school and they come and they're angry and they mad about the environment that they live in. Because some of them are being traumatized at home too now. And some children are showing up at school because they don't even want to be at home. Okay.
And that doesn't lend itself to being able to actually learn if you're just going to escape a traumatic home situation.
No. Well, you got kids that's sleeping because they couldn't sleep at home. So they're sleeping on their desks.
Yeah.
You have children who can't read because they've never been challenged to read, right? If the classroom is not doing it and you're not having it at home and you're not being challenged to read, then we're talking about that part of your brain hasn't even been exposed to it. You know, so I know this is a hot topic. I know it is. We're not trying to solve anything. What we're doing is really saying this is a call, this is a cry out from Alisha Fuller. I know that much, as an emergency, that when they say it takes a village to raise, okay, it takes a village to raise our children. It literally does.
It does.
It literally does. Because I am concerned. I am not only concerned about our children, I'm concerned about young women. You know, there was an issue in my area and I heard something and I just didn't agree with it. And I said, well, what's this? And I waited a few minutes before I got involved. Sometimes we have to get involved, you all. I know I hear people say, I don't want to get shot. I'm not going to anybody's door. I'm not saying anything to anybody and all of those things. But can I tell you that I honestly take God with me? I mean, he goes before me. Let me say that when I was doing a class a group called Parents Empowering Parents, when my son was little, we knocked on doors. We said, hey, we not only haven't seen your children, but you haven't signed up for any meeting. So if they're not picking up, I was part of the calling first. Oh, the hand's strapped. I was part of the calling first. And if they didn't pick up, we had the right to go knock on the door. And so we went to get the people. Listen to me, you all. As a woman of God, this is God has called us to do this, to the orphans, to the widows, to those who are, sheltered, and those who are homeless, those who have a need. This is a cry out, a Malachi cry, that the Father's hearts will be turned back to the children's hearts. That's what this is. Our babies are suffering and they are lost and nobody is holding them accountable. So parents, we have to hold you accountable. You're the first contact. What are we talking about? We got to hold you accountable. We got to hold you accountable. So I want us we'll continue this podcast. You got anything else you want to share with this? I just wanted to put that cry out.
I think that as this podcast is called Open and Unashamed.
Absolutely.
And one thing we are unashamed about is talking about the fact that we are people of God.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever is listening to it, doesn't really matter what you believe in at this point, but in the sense that this is for anybody, but we're not alone. We're not alone. And by that, what I mean is that we have God at our disposal. And many times I remember, praying for my daughter and thinking like, oh, maybe more honestly, more like worrying. And the Holy Spirit remind me, like, you're not alone. These children, and I tell my kids this all the time, I'm like, look, you're not God's grandchild because you are my child.
That's right.
You're God's child too.
Absolutely.
So as, people of God, instilling that belief in our children, or at the very least, inviting them to come along on that journey of growing in God. Because like you said earlier on, the Bible says, raise up the child in the way it ought to go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. And as we invite them on that journey, trusting that God will take care of them. But we have to remember that, which I think is a struggle. Like, we get anxious, like, oh my goodness, look at my child in this school system, blah, blah. And then you're just reminded that you're not alone. Your child is even meant to be a light unto others. As you're shining the light onto your child and bringing your child along and guiding your child along the path of God, letting your child also be a light unto others as well. I think it's very crucial that we don't forget that, because we can't do this on our own. You know, we've talked about support system. We've talked about going to parent teachers conference. We've talked about, you know, not letting it be work and work only, which honestly in this day and age, it is hard. But if we start to tap more and lean more into God, God will show us those spaces and those places where we can make changes, where we need to make changes. And sometimes it's not a big change, it's a small change, you know, and giving it to God and constantly going before God. Like, look, God, you gave us these children. How do we do this? How do we raise them? Because a lot of times what happens is we take God's commands, right? We want to follow them, but then we don't even ask God, how do we follow his commands? Like how? The Bible says, train up a child in the way ought to go. When he's old, he won't depart from you. Like, yes, right, I know what to do. But we haven't sat down and looked inwards at the God within us and say, God, how? God, how? How do I raise this particular child? What do I say to, okay, I have to go to this meeting. I have to do this with this child. God, guide me. This particular child, because you may have more than one child. One child needs tutoring, the other doesn't. One child needs, you know, extracurricular to burn off that energy. The other one doesn't. And as these children are made by God, God has the blueprint for their lives. As we step into being more conscious and more intentional about our parenting, we need to involve God in every area of our lives. And it's more than just taking our children to church.
It's more than taking our children to church. It is spending that time with God ourselves so that we can get the wisdom, the knowledge, and understanding. So a lot of times we are training our children up, and we, as you stated, don't know what training them up means. So I was at church all the time. Does that mean that was best for my son? That's not what that means. Because there were times he was waiting and the Lord said, I need you to leave. Because he's been here all day. Because they get older, and then they're like, no, I don't want to do what my mother did. She was in all day, all on the floor, praying for people, like she didn't have time for herself. And God was working on himself. He was working on my son. So just because I'm thinking my training is one way, like you said, I had to seek God, and God began to tell me, listen, your son, like I love how you said, he's not his grandfather. The Lord told me, he said, that's my son.
Yep.
You do know he prays to me too. You do know that I'm answering his prayers too. So when if we're talking to believers are listening, we're saying to be encouraged and use the power that God has given you.
Yes.
But you must spend time with the Lord yourself. You must have this intimacy. You must read his word. You must have the wisdom that he has given us, because God is a God of wisdom. And it is through his wisdom that he gives us what we need. So we have to seek him for those instructions. To the teachers, as we wrap this up, I want teachers to be encouraged.
Yes.
You know, we'll continue this conversation, but I want teachers to be encouraged. This is something that you don't just look at, learn, and model on how to be a teacher. This thing is a heart thing. Yes. And even if you're growing in, you got young teachers, look like they're about 23, 25 years old, and got a student sitting in there that's 19, because they've repeated their grade, you know. But even as a young teacher, you have to be developed. Don't take it for granted that you're a teacher. You went through this, I got my master's and I'm this and that. No, you have to be developed. And then you got to be trained on how to have healthy communication. And you must listen to those lessons that they taught you about human development, because each child is going through something at a certain age. Listen, this is a step-by-step process. But if you're going to take the job, be in it and do it. We're talking about the parent, You took the job in parenthood. We're talking about the teacher that takes the job to enhance, encourage, and teach our children.
Yep.
And we're talking about a society that
Yes.
you get money to invest in our children. And many times that investment is not put in the right place. And we're talking to a society and a community of people like you and I, of leaders and entrepreneurs and doctors and all these other beautiful names that we believe God has given us. And he just called us to worship him through giving. He just told us to become servants and give back, to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. That's what he called us to do. And so if that's not what we're doing, if we're not giving time to our children, if we're not going in school systems, yeah, he'll give us an idea on how to do it. He will. But don't think a small thing don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can invest your dollar if you don't want to be in there. Send it to me. You can invest your time of one day. There's an investment that the school system will take it. So I'm done with this. I appreciate you. And I just thank you all for listening. And I thank you, Dr. Shola, for your impartation and wisdom.
Thank
and
you.
your transparency. We have to be. This is an open and unashamed conversation.
Yep.
And this is real. This is real conversation. So I just want to say thank you all and thank you for listening. Feel free to leave your comments, your chats, and share this because there is a cry out. And we need you. We all need you. We need one another. While government is doing what they're doing, guess what? The small and big people still out here in the field and communities doing what it is that we need to do.
Yes.
And so I just want you all to be blessed for today and just have an amazing day. Thank you. God bless you.